This is part one of a four-part series. These episodes consist of interviewing those involved in the research of the Nazca bodies. This has never been done for an English audience before, where they go into detail on their research and their background. While the first interview is in English, the remaining three are in Spanish with accurate English subtitles embedded in the video. If you would like to find the English dubbed version, you can do so on my podcast at Strange and Unexplained. That link is in the description box below. Josh, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm very excited to talk to you about these Nazca specimen bodies, mummies, however you want to describe them. It's a heated topic. There's a lot of people that say yes, they're real. There's a lot of investigations being done, and then you have the other half that says, "Oh, it's just a cake. It's fake," and all of these different things. And so I want to start off with this first question of why did you put your name out there? Why did you get involved in the research of these Nazca bodies?
It came about where I actually saw online on social media, and I don't remember if it was X or Facebook or Instagram, but I had seen a clip of Jaime Maussan presenting at Mexican Congress about these bodies, and I was kind of intrigued. So I went and watched. I found online a longer version, watched the whole thing, and at the end, Jaime says, "We welcome all forensic experts from around the world, scientists, to come and review these and to examine them and to investigate." And so my father's a forensic scientist, former president of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. And I sent him the link. I texted him. I said, "Have you seen this before?" And, and that's kind of how it started. So I didn't go looking for it. It's not that I was ever in these spaces previously. It was just, something that came up on my feed one day.
And what's your background? What do you do? Your specialty?
I'm an attorney. I'm a criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, and have been doing criminal defense for 17 years. A lot of what I do is interviews. I do a lot of investigative work, but also I'm relied on to do a lot of legal work and answer some questions every once in a while. And so my role is kind of multifaceted in this. I've been asked to do a lot, and I don't mind. It's been kind of interesting as I've gotten involved in this and learned a lot about it.
And how has the legal dispute with the Peruvian Ministry of Culture, how has it affected the investigation process?
Well, from my perspective, the big push that I have, that my father has, is to test the specimens legally, ethically, and with cutting edge scientific methods that aren't available in Peru. So one of the issues is the bodies are there, but the ability to test them is not in Peru. And so we'd have to bring them to either Europe or to the United States, most likely, and anyway, outside of Peru to have them tested. So there's issues with customs, with moving them from one location to another. There's also an issue that with Peru that they are part of the cultural patrimony. So legally, we would need consent and permission from the Minister of Culture to be able to move the bodies themselves or even specimens, DNA or tissue samples to have those tested.
And why is there this blockage of getting them moved out of Peru into a different country to get better analysis on them?
Well, that's a question for somebody else other than me, because it's really a question for the Minister of Culture, is to see why they haven't agreed to do it as of yet. We know it can be done. We know that last year is a great example. UC Santa Cruz with Yale University took DNA samples from Machu Picchu, from working class, the working class around Machu Picchu, where they'd found human remains and had those tested. They wanted to do DNA sampling and DNA testing to find out where the working class of Machu Picchu was from, what parts of Peru or other parts of South America they may have come from. And so that was done just last year. They took DNA samples and had them tested at the laboratory at UC Santa Cruz. So the issue really is is the Ministry of Culture going to allow it? Because it's a signature and it's consent. Then we would deal with U.S. Customs, which would be a little bit easier. And that's what we were doing at the hearing 2 weeks ago, Christina. That's why we were in Lima to testify in front of the public audience in front of Peruvian Congress, is to discuss the issue of getting permission to have the bodies tested outside of Peru.
Have you experienced any pressure to withdraw from these investigations?
You know, I've gotten a few nasty emails. I've gotten, I think it kind of comes with the territory online. There's a lot of, comments and things of that nature. But I've had a couple threatening emails, and but as far as what type of pressure do you mean? Professional pressure? Do you mean? Give me an example of what you're talking about.
How do people perceive you knowing that you are a part of this investigation?
I've had maybe 3 clients talk to me about it, and it's all been very positive. They're very curious and ask a lot of questions, maybe because they see me on social media that I was, in Peru, or putting pictures on Instagram or things of that nature, and it raises some questions, but it's all been very positive. I'm certainly not getting clients, and I'm certainly not losing clients from doing this. That's definitely not my goal. And I'm not making money doing this either, Christina. I've spent a lot of my own personal time doing this, and I've not received, a dime for this work that I've done.
Are you a part of the lawsuit being filed for 300 million against the Ministry of Culture in Peru?
I'm not. That's being done by Jaime Maussan in Peru with Peruvian attorneys, and so it's not something that, as a lawyer or personally, that I've had any input or work on.
Have you seen these bodies for yourself?
I have on 2 different occasions. I've been to Lima, and I've also been to Ica, the University of Ica. So I've seen bodies in Lima on 2 different occasions, and also at the University of Ica.
And let's actually talk about the University of Ica. It's significant in this conversation that we're having right now because they're a university that has actually investigated some of these bodies. From your understanding, what bodies have they looked at and what information have they found?
The university specifically, Christina?
Yes.
Okay. So the university, there was 4 bodies that were there. There's Wawita, Maria, and then there's 2 of the 60 centimeter size bodies that are there. And so the university's had those for a while. I don't know exactly when they received those, but it's been years, is my understanding. And they are uh, in being stored in glass cases in a room at the university. They have them stored well. They've got diatomaceous earth in the bottom of the cases to help keep them dry, and they were very, very welcoming and rolled out the red carpet for us. Truthfully, when we came to visit, they brought in a fluoroscopy machine. They brought it in on like a U-Haul for us because they're big. I mean, they're the size of a refrigerator, and brought it in, which is a fluoroscopy for your listeners is almost like a live X-ray. And so we were able to, myself with the U.S. doctor. So my father, Dr. Rodriguez, who's an anthropologist, works for the state of Maryland, um, and the Denver medical examiner as well. We were all able to take a look at these things and to view them live under fluoroscopy, and then later some of the additional bodies under CT.
So you just talked about your father, and I'll have to go into some more detail on that. With his very understanding mind, being working in forensic science for how many years? A few decades?
Oh, as long as I've been alive. I mean, it's more than 40 years, Christina.
a lifetime, really. He's seen it all. He's seen everything. What were his initial thoughts when he came across these bodies, saw them for the first time, and did some forensic analysis on them?
It's interesting is we went down there. Our goal is just to keep an open mind because they are so odd. There's nothing like these bodies in the fossil record. There's nothing like these bodies anywhere. And there's so many different morphologies or phenotypes or however you want to describe it of different bodies. And there's more than have been, shown to the general public. There's even more out there. And so it's very odd when you go to look at them. So he is very pragmatic, very practical. For him, it's always there's got to be a prosaic explanation. That's my father's position on everything. And he's a retired colonel. He's a retired uh, medical school and dental school professor. So he has a very pragmatic, you know, approach to things. And so I think he's been an open-minded skeptic, even still today, as to what these things may be. We know that they're real physical bodies. We know that they're tangible. You can touch them. They're real in that sense. But what they are is the big question. And the answer may be different for the different phenotypes or different the morphologies of the bodies. We don't know yet because our investigation is somewhat limited. The bodies are in Peru. We can't do any destructive testing on them. We don't believe that's appropriate, not only legally and ethically, but scientifically at this point until we have permission. And so anything that could be done that we would want to do to verify what these are, carbon 14, DNA, other genetic testing, we haven't been able to do yet because we're waiting on the Ministry of Culture to grant permission.
Dang. So it seems like this very difficult process of getting this stuff done because from what I've seen across platforms is the frustration that people have when trying to find the data that's being conducted on these bodies, the different types of bodies as well. So before we continue, where's a good place where people can stay up to date on the research of these specimens?
Well, I wish there was more media about it. I've been blogging about them on my law firm website. It's mcdowellfirm.com. And I've also been blogging a little bit on another website, forensic-x.com. And that's just a website that I created to blog. My search engine optimization team for my website was kind of pissed off at me a little bit for for blogging about mummies. So I moved them over to the other website. So my SEO team wouldn't be upset with me. But so I've been blogging over there a little bit. So for me and for what I put out that's been over there on those two websites. The Daily Mail is been running a few articles about this. It's been in the New York Post, but there's not a great repository. I think U.S. media has been slow to pick up on this story, and if they knew what I knew, I think they'd be much more interested in following this because it's a fascinating story. As I've said, there's nothing like this in the world, and I can tell you with 100% certainty that these bodies are real. A lot of people say, "Oh, they're cake," or as you were saying a minute ago, that they're real physical things that you can look at, touch, and examine. And we hope to examine them further, but with permission in a laboratory setting, that we would have the ability to control the testing methods and modalities with permission and knowing what the limits are from the Ministry of Culture, working together in tandem to come up with a plan to say, this is how we plan on testing them and maintaining chain of custody, maintaining all the testing methods and modalities are cutting edge and up to date. I think the big issue is either this is one of the most important finds in modern history. It can change the idea of human origins, of our ancestry, where we came from, or it is one of the most sophisticated and complicated hoaxes in modern history. It's a forensic mystery. And I've seen these bodies in person, and they are phenomenal. And I've looked at them myself with, as I said, with three of the best forensic doctors in the world. And they are incredible and they need further testing. But our testing has been limited. So I think the big issue that we need to explore and that we need to uh, look at is, can these be tested further in a proper laboratory setting with the best methods and modalities? Because right now the bodies are stuck in Peru. I know that people have taken samples out of Peru, and I know they've been tested in various locations. But I worry about the same things we talked about a moment ago: is about contamination, about collection, about chain of custody, and also what methods are they using to test these bodies or these samples. I know where several samples are. I know that people have smuggled them out of Peru. I disagree with it. I think it's unethical. I think it's unscientific, and I know it's illegal. And that's why that's been part of our challenge, is we want to make sure everything is done the right way, Christina. And because I don't think that's how science is done, where you smuggle something out or do it surreptitiously. It's just, that's not how it should be done. That's not how one of the greatest, potentially one of the greatest findings in modern archaeological history should be handled. Now, unfortunately, a lot of things have been made difficult by how these bodies were discovered, because these bodies were discovered and recovered by huaqueros, by grave robbers. The original site is no longer exists. It certainly no longer exists in the form and format it was when it was discovered. And so there's been a lot of discussion about where the real site is. I know the main Huaquero, Mario, has taken people to various different locations. I don't believe any of those locations are the true location of where he found the bodies. I know they've been moved and stored in other locations. So, from an archaeological standpoint, it's a mess, and we can't recreate that, and it's a real shame. But what we can do is we can use forensic methods and scientific technologies to find out what these are. Are these humans that have genetic defects? A lot of people have a lot of different theories. I've heard them all, time travelers, extraterrestrials, hybrids. And I am very cautious because, I have a pragmatic and practical position on this too, which is, let's test them, let's find out. I don't think speculating too much gets us anywhere. I mean, it's fun and it makes for great conversations, but it we're not to the point where we know what they are yet, but we can find it out really easily. And it just requires the Ministry of Culture and the scientific community at large to get together to say, let's work together and get this done. We can find out what these are. And then once we find out what they are, we can decide where they should go. Is it a museum? Is it reburial? Is it putting them in a holy site at one of the temples down in the Nazca region? I don't know, and that's not really my decision to be made at all. That's something for the Ministry of Culture and the indigenous community to decide. But I think we first need to find out what they are to be able to make that decision.
And you've been on the front lines for some time now, been able to see the bodies firsthand, speak to the researchers conducting the investigations and the analysis, and you've also seen how the news has been carrying this topic. What are some main things that you've noticed that you would classify as misidentification, or even really spewing nonsense out there that you've caught and you're like, that's not true at all, that you could share with us?
That's a great point, and that came up again recently, just a couple weeks ago when we were at the hearing in Congress in Lima. Is there was two different anthropologists that were there that were showing dolls that were basically an art project that were made to look like the Nazca mummies. These were about 18 inches tall. These were confiscated at the airport in Lima, and Flavio Estrada, who is an anthropologist that works for the state, showed these and said, "Hey, look, these are hoaxes. These are poorly manufactured." And that was, about a year and a half ago. And here we are again, just even a couple weeks ago, he's showing these same dolls dressed in, a big yellow and pink dress and saying, look, these mummies are fake. These are manufactured bodies. These are clearly fake. They're made of glue, and we've tested it. And I agree with him. What he has and what he's tested are in fact dolls made of glue and chicken bones or whatever types of bones. I'm not interested in what Flavio Estrada was showing at his press conference. And problematically, the international media picked up that story and said, well, the mystery's been solved. It's a hoax. These bodies are dolls, and that's the end of it. Even today, if you Google it, you'll see Reuters and some major news sources that are the first, second, and third uh, Google results when you Google the Nazca mummies. And it's disinformation, and it's purposeful disinformation. I know it is because they've continued to do it. Why they're doing it, I think I understand that a lot better now after our trip to Peru. But the truth is, the bodies that were shown at that press conference and have been pushed as being quote unquote the Nazca mummies are not the bodies we've been researching. Those are dolls. Those were made by an artist. His name is Manuel, who made those bodies, and they have nothing to do with the bodies that we've been studying, which are you take Maria Montserrat or some of the new bodies like Fernando Paloma that we were able to see when we were just down there a few weeks ago. These were 100% definite, without a doubt, real living organisms at some point. Um, and that's not what's been shown by Flavio Estrada as the Nazca mummies. He's tried to conflate and confuse the topic, and I want to make sure that the public at large understands that these 12 or 16-inch tall dummies or dolls are not the Nazca mummies that we've been studying.
What role has international collaboration played in your findings?
Well, it's been very important because there's a group of Peruvians, there's a group of Mexican docs as well that we've worked with. So we've worked with the docs down at the University of Ica, also some private doctors like David Ruiz, who's a Peruvian plastic surgeon and hand doctor who's done extensive work on these. We've worked shoulder to shoulder with him. We've also worked with the doctors down at the University of Ica, who've been very generous with their time and great to work with. We've also worked with the Mexican docs. So Dr. Zalce Benitez has been making the rounds on media recently and talking about these. And he's a forensic doc with the Mexican Navy, a really great doctor and even better human being. And it's been great to work with these different doctors to examine them and have different points of view, maybe different perspectives. And then also the American doctors. So when we went down, we very specifically, my father, we reached out to Jaime Maussan after I'd seen it online to kind of go back to the story we were talking about earlier. And my dad said, well, I don't want to go down unless we have uh, an anthropologist and a pathologist. And so that's what we did is we found a pathologist and an anthropologist to go down with us because we felt it was important to have a team of different experts to look at these bodies. My dad's a forensic odontologist. He's great with the maxillofacial, with the oral and head examination, but there's so many different oddities on these bodies that we thought it was important to have other experts as well with us.
Can you tell us the implications and significance of the Nazca bodies? Like, how is this important? What are your findings, and why should people pay attention?
I think that's the real big overarching question, Christina, and I think it really depends on what they are. Um, that's what the investigation is about. Is once we find out and determine the true nature and origin of these bodies, I think that will answer your questions a lot better. Because if we find that they are something outside of the ordinary, out that one of those different theories of the nature of these beings is different than a practical prosaic explanation as of, hey, these are a different line of human evolution. Are these an unknown species? Are these humans that have a genetic defect? I mean, there's so many different theories that once we find out those answers and we know what they are, then I think that question will be very easily answered, because the significance of the bodies depends on what the bodies are. And if they are a different line of human evolution, or if they are simply something like, for example, the Vedoma tribe in Africa that has a small group that has a genetic defect where they have toes and hands that have two fingers. And it's very widely found in that community as a genetic defect. Is that what's going on here that's producing this morphology of the three fingers and three toes with the extra phalange? I don't know. I mean, that's just one other theory. But once we find out what these are, then I think we'll know what the importance of these bodies are. Are these one of the most important finds in human history, or are they something completely different? And that's why it's important to find out. I think the actual journey is the answer, or will get us to the answer. And so I think we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit to know what the importance is. I think we need to know what they are, and then we'll know what the importance is.
Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Christina. It was really nice to meet you.
To watch the rest of the series, subscribe to this channel so you do not miss a single episode. That is it for today. I will see you in the next episode. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies. If you enjoy the strange and the mysterious, UFOs, the paranormal, and cryptids, this channel is for you. So make sure to subscribe, as I do 3 videos right here every single week, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of the bonus content I post right here.